The feeling in America will be, let's throw these Democrats out.
By now, the name Edward Klein is becoming almost as well known as the title of his book, The Amateur, now in the third week on the New York Times bestseller list. If you haven't read The Amateur, you've certainly heard about it. A very behind-the-scenes portrait of President Obama and his wife, Michelle, from people who know them extremely well. Ed, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Great to be here. All right. Tell me something. Your book has been out. You've been interviewed everywhere. Thank you for making the time with us. Tell me.
My pleasure.
All right. What are you asked about most within The Amateur to discuss and elaborate on?
I think most people ask me about the Reverend Wright because I had a 3-hour sit-down with the Reverend Wright with a tape recorder going. I've released the entire tape. And during that period of time, he said that during the 2008 election, Barack Obama's best friend, Eric Whitaker, emailed him and offered him $150,000 to remain silent, a bribe, really. And after that, Obama himself called and wanted to meet with the Reverend Wright after he'd already thrown the Reverend Wright under the bus in a secure location, he said, which means he wanted to meet with him secretly so nobody would know.
Right.
And the Reverend Wright said, well, you know, Barack, you've been to my home 100 times. Why don't you just come to the parsonage? So he did. He got into a Secret Service car, went to the parsonage. We know this for a fact because the Secret Service logged that meeting in to their logs, and he begged, Obama begged the Reverend Wright to remain silent during the campaign because he said he was hurting his chances of getting elected president. And the Reverend Wright said, I can't do that. I have to tell the truth. And Obama said, yeah, that's your problem, Reverend Wright. You have to tell the truth. And the Reverend Wright said, well, that's not such a bad thing for a minister to have to do.
And Reverend Wright has not disputed a single word of your account, correct?
No, he certainly hasn't.
All right. The other thing is that since The Amateur has come out, Bill Clinton has almost seemed to vindicate a number of the quotes there with some of his remarks about the president and what he should do. And this has led to more speculation about just what he said to you. Sum up in a nutshell. What's Bill Clinton think of the man who now employs his wife as Secretary of State?
It is from Bill Clinton that I got the title The Amateur, because he thinks Barack Obama is an amateur. He thinks he doesn't have a clue about the economy. He thinks the people around him don't understand how the real world works. And he thinks that Obama is, unlike Bill Clinton, at sea when it comes to getting things done in Washington. And there's very little love lost between those two. I call them the Hatfields and McCoys of the Democratic Party.
And they're the last two Democratic presidents who it would seem hold each other in minimum high regard.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. Bill wants his wife Hillary to run for president in 2016. I think he's calculating that if Obama gets reelected and does as badly in the second term as he's done in the first, that the feeling in America will be, let's throw these Democrats out, meaning Hillary's not going to have much of a chance in 2016. But if Mitt Romney gets elected and has to do what he said he will do, which is cut back on some of the entitlement programs, Hillary will have a better chance against the Republicans. So I think he's actually trying to sabotage Obama's reelection.
Boy, that, considering the fact that Bill Clinton is the most in-demand campaigner in the Democratic Party, bar none, and many times candidates that he's endorsed have won contested primaries, that's substantial when you say that.
It's massive, actually, I think. It's the regeneration of this terrible feud between the so-called centrists in the Democratic Party, the center-left people like Bill Clinton, and the far-left Teddy Kennedy type of people like Barack Obama. And these two wings have been at each other's throats since the McGovern days, at least.
Well, certainly.
And I think Bill would like to see the center back in charge of the Democratic National Committee.
Final question, Ed. Putting on my hat as a White House correspondent, Press Secretary Jay Carney has told my colleagues and me that there are just so many anonymous quotes in your book and quotes without reference that one would have to question the veracity of some of them. I'm going to give you an opportunity. What do you say to Jay Carney and other critics, because he certainly is not alone in saying that?
Yes. Well, I did 200 interviews, many with current and former members of this administration, many Republican leaders, many Democratic leaders. Of those 200 interviews, I would say more than half are actually on the record. The other half, like Bob Woodward, who doesn't have all his sources on the record either, spoke to me anonymously because they were afraid it would get back to Barack Obama that they spoke. But this, I've been a reporter for 50 years. I've interviewed everyone from Anwar Sadat to Ronald Reagan. I have a long track record of getting it right, and I'm sure that the quotes in this book are very firm and very credible.